wanted this forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Hey. Ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era. I wake up early, feeling rich like I'm Kesha. I get to the paper, boy.
One second, ladies and gentlemen. I caught myself this time. Check, check, check. Here we go. All right.
Yo, here we go. I caught it this time. It's happened to me twice, not this time. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back into another video episode to talk about our favorite team, the Arizona Cardinals. Huge shout out to the people that are currently in the chat right now. We got that guy. We got Daddy. We got Michael, the Avenger of Fluffy. Appreciate y'all guys for being here in the chat. Do me a huge favor, smack up the like button here. And let me do a real quick shout out here to the sponsors of the AZ Sports Fan here on YouTube, BetUS. If you're looking for a brand new sportsbook, BetUS is the way to go. Currently, right now, if you use promo code YouTube150, they will provide you with a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and a 125% sign-up bonus on the following two. That's going to be using promo code YouTube150 upon signing up. Of course, bet responsibly and bet within your means. But ladies and gentlemen, we got a special one today. We got my guy, Joe, the Cardinal Rule, coming on here to chop it up and talk all thing Arizona Cardinals. Ladies and gentlemen, do me a huge favor, fire emoji it up in the comments below. Welcome in, Joe, the Cardinal Rule. What's up, man? How you been?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. It's always good hanging out with you, dude.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you for coming on. Sometimes it's a little weird talking to myself and talking to chat, so I'm glad you actually jumped on here so we can kind of chop it up and talking all things Cardinals right now. The last time we actually spoke, we were doing good. A 4-game winning streak. We went to our bye week, and now we are on a 2-game losing streak. Hopefully, coming back into the division, or at least the opportunity to come back into the division. And then we got what some people might say winnable games after this game, but we got to get through Seattle. I want to go ahead and just open up the floor right now to kind of get a gauge on where you're feeling about this 2024 Arizona Cardinals outside this 2-game losing streak after the bye. What are your thoughts, Joe?
Overall, I still feel really good. I mean, again, I looked at it through the lens of this as a team that's in year 2 of a rebuild, right? And again, we talked about this before. Year 1 of the rebuild, massive turnover, good culture, good effort, but not the roster to win. Year 2, the roster's better, the culture's there, the systems are starting to come into place, and you want the team to be better, and you usually expect them to be kind of pushing for a playoff spot. But if they make it, that's being ahead of schedule, and they still have a chance, right? So in terms of that big picture, they're on track. But getting really into what's going on specifically this season, I think there's a really important thing that I'm sure you wanted to talk about is the development of the defense. Right, coming into the season, that was like the weak spot. Like people thought, oh, this would be one of the 3 or 4 worst defenses in the league, and for the first 5 or 6 weeks, they were right. But it's a very young defense, and I keep saying this: when you have a defense built with young players, they're going to get better as the season goes on. Those young players get more and more, time on task under their belt. And what we've seen is this defense, even through the losing streak, they've been really solid, right? And it's become statistically one of the better defenses in the league over the last 6 or 7 games. Now, I think they're going to regress to the mean a little bit because I still think they need to add talent to be a legit bona fide top 10 defense in the NFL. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but that development in defense shows us the coaching on the defensive side, the player development, and the players they've drafted. It's all working out, and so the long-term vision of trying to build a sustained winning team, this defense is really showing that it's maybe even ahead of where we thought it would be. So I'm really excited about that. Yes, they've lost 2 games in a row. They were on the road against Seattle and, a team that was 9-2 in the Vikings, and they barely lost both those games. Like, there's no shame in that, and they're not getting blown out. They had 2 blowout losses this year, and now in those games where they're competitive week in and week out. So overall, I still feel really good about the big picture.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's crazy because I think we'll talk about the offense here pretty soon, but I do agree with what you're saying. The defense is absolutely outperformed, and it's I've always kind of have some subscribers come on here, and I'm not sure if you're seeing the same thing as yours, but like a lot of them are kind of blaming the defense, and I'm like, well, the defense, like with when they're coming in here, I don't think I had such high expectations, especially with the players that they have on the field. They got a lot of young talent on there, and they're getting better and better and better. We're seeing Garrett Williams now starting. People are kind of starting to know his name. We're starting to kind of see some PFF grades out there and Twitter/X being floated around. Everybody's super excited about Garrett Williams. When I know me and you were really, really high on him when we drafted him. Unfortunately, he got hurt, didn't play the full season, but he's looking really, really good. Max Milton has some flashes here and there. Of course, he gets beat, but he's a rookie, right? But we're going to be seeing Elijah Jones. We're probably not seeing him this week, or most likely we're not. I know we opened up the 20-day window for him, but maybe by the end of the season we might see some sort of glimpse. But Darius Robinson and a lot of the other younger guys that we have on this defense, they're doing really well for who we have on the field. Now, obviously, Budda Baker is going to be the main guy to obviously talk about, especially when you're looking out all this organization. People don't really cover the team. Budda Baker's that big name out there. Let me ask you this real quick. Of course, James Conner just got paid, right? And good for him. I think we're all pretty excited about bringing our workhorse back. But Budda Baker, what are your thoughts on Budda? I know obviously it's Monty Ossenfort in this front office decision, but where do you land on the whole Budda Baker situation? Because I know, not coming from you, but about, when we were losing, we were like 1-3, there was some things out there that were kind of pitching ideas like maybe Budda Baker might be on his way out for a potential mock trade, right? But where do you stand with Budda?
I had been on the fence for quite a while because there's two sides of this. There is the smart roster building philosophy approach, right? This process of how you approach the draft, how you approach free agency, how you approach your own players. And part of that is that safeties, you don't pay them lots of money late into their career, right? It's just one of those positions that after they kind of hit 30, not that they can't play anymore. There are some out there like Harrison Smith who still play well, but having big money in that position is just not objectively speaking kind of, smart roster building. But Budda is a little bit different, right? Yeah. And there's still the concern if you sign him to a long-term deal, does the play fall off and you've got this big contract? They've got a lot of cap space. I know I've seen the chat 2-year deal. If you can get him to sign for a 2-year deal, and you got to remember, everyone says, well, just give him a 2-year deal. There's two parties involved. True. Budda might say no. He might say, no, I'm going to go hit free agency and find someone who will give me more. So, it's not like Madden where you can just give him the contract and he has to take it, right? Yeah. But I have come around to thinking, we have cap space. We have a player who has been like, he's in that pantheon of great Cardinals players in our generation, with Larry Fitzgerald, right? He's in that pantheon. Larry's at the top, but Budda's right there, right? Yeah. And what he means to the organization, what he means to the culture, what he means to the effort, what he means to that locker room. And I think at this point, I've come around to the place where I'm like, try to sign him. If you can do a shorter deal that's front loaded, so you can kind of, load it into that year when we got that cap space, try to do that. But I think I've come around to saying, let's extend him because of what he means to this team.
Yeah, no, it's been one of those things with Budda Baker. I don't know. I do feel like he's one of those guys that are absolutely a fan favorite, and I kind of agree with that whole Larry Fitzgerald thing and Budda Baker. And to me, I'm not sure, I can't really speak for you, but Honey Badger and P2 were one of those guys up there with me as well. But unfortunately, obviously, the way that it all ended, with Honey Badger being disgruntled with the front office, and then P2 had those comments about, like, not the fan base, but I know a lot of the fan base got really, really kind of hurt in their feelings about but P2 never said anything about the fan. It's just the organization. It's just business at the end of the day. But I always felt about those two as well, that I really, really like those two guys. Calais Campbell was another one as well that kind of got away from us. And it's just, I don't want Budda Baker to be one of those guys that goes to a championship. Actually, let me reframe that back. I would love to see him win a ring and a winning team, but I would want to see him win a ring with us. Right. And that's just being selfish at the end of the day. But I want him to retire as a Cardinal. Like, I really do. He's one of those guys that he's in the locker room. And I always go back to that video, and I believe it was a couple years back, where he was like, it hurts so much. I don't want to lose at home anymore. Right. Obviously, I don't do injustice the way I'm speaking, but what I'm talking about, that video that was floating around. Like, he is what you want the players in your locker room to be. And I don't know. I've got a bad feeling. I know Monty's going to want to bring him back because they've talked nothing but glowing remarks, but you're right. It takes two sides to the party to sign the deal. If he doesn't want to do it through a year and he can get somewhere more, maybe a longer deal, more security for his family. I don't blame him at the end of the day. I'm so curious to figure out how that's gonna to work out. But let's dive into real quick. We got 2 games to kind of, I don't want to deep dive into Seahawks. I don't want to deep dive into Vikings, but just as a whole, right? Coming off a 4-game winning streak, we're all really, really high, like excited about this team. But talk to me right now. I know you're still pretty high. What do you think was the problem in terms of these 2 games? And I think they could be different problems in each game. But what exactly, in your opinion, happened as to why now we're finding ourselves at 6-6, which isn't bad, but now we're
Yeah.
6-6.
Well, the Seattle game to me was all about Seattle's defensive front. They were putting pressure on Kyler. They were stopping the run. That, in fact, stopping the run was the bigger deal. Like, Kyler, he'll deal with some pressure. He can get away from it. But if the Cardinals could have kept the ball moving, running the ball, I think they could have won that game. But that put Kyler in situations where then they could, put him under pressure, longer second and third down. So, I know there's a lot of Seattle fans chirping in the chat. Kudos to your defensive front. Your defensive front came, and that's what won the game for you. They especially stopping the run. It started with shutting down the Cardinals run game, which is the strongest part of our offense. And then from there, they were able to tee off in the pass rush. Obviously there was the interception, from Kyler, which was unfortunate. That doesn't end up happening or becoming so, existential of a problem in the game if it weren't for the fact that they were stopping the run, right?
Yeah.
With the Vikings, we went on the road into Minnesota and played a really good game for 3 quarters, and had enough offense and a good defense. And it really was, I know people have talked about this, but it really was kind of being too conservative, in terms of the offensive play calling. Like, this team, had been at one point perfect in scoring in the red zone, and we had 3 or 4 times in the red zone, and we couldn't get a touchdown. And I know everyone's talking about, and I would generally agree, not going for a touchdown when they were up, on 4th down. I think you take that shot, right? They played it safe and gave the Seahawks, the Vikings, a chance to come back and win. So that game, to me, that was much closer, and it was just one decision that could have gone a different way, or one play that could have gone a different way. I feel like that game, if it makes sense, was less of an overall failure on the Cardinals' part. It was so close, and just, sure, if he was been a little less conservative. The Seattle game, it was, we just couldn't stop their defensive front. So that's kind of how I size up those 2 games.
Yeah, that's fair. Let me ask you this question, because I think that's one of the big things that I've been hearing about in the comments. Like, JG should have been more aggressive. He should have gone over for that 4th down. What is your take in that whole situation? Because I was doing the live play-by-play, and at that very moment, I was like, just take the points. Just take the points. And I don't know if it was because I personally didn't have confidence that the offense was going to be able to convert it.
Yeah.
Or maybe thinking down that was just going to be what JG was going to do anyway. So I was just like, hey, I settled my mind to say just take the points. What was your thought process when you were watching that? Did you want him to be more aggressive? We saw Dan Campbell. I'm not sure if you saw that game. This man does not punt the damn ball. Dan Campbell from the Lions does not punt the ball. And I got a lot of people DMing me either on Instagram or Twitter saying, I want JG to be this aggressive. And I'm like, well, maybe not that aggressive. But what are your thoughts on, obviously, him not going for the 4th and what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I understood the logic, go up by 2 field goals so that they need a touchdown to win, but they got the touchdown to win. So you still had a lead. So if you're going to trust your defense, and listen, my approach towards things when it comes to football tends to be more measured and conservative. So I do have that leaning towards that. But I really do think, in this case, and maybe it's hindsight, but taking that aggressive shot because you had a lead. Right. It's not like you needed the field goal to take the lead, right? You had a lead. So try to give yourself a lead that they can't overcome, right? Instead of kind of one where, okay, well, if we can get them to a field goal, we win, right? So I do lean now, again, maybe it's hindsight. I don't know, but I do think that going for the touchdown, even on 4th down, would have been the smart move. And you give them a much longer field to have to try to, kind of go down and drive down the field with. So, yeah, I lean in that direction.
Gotcha. Okay. Did you? So obviously, right? We're all talking hindsight. I don't know. At any point, do you have any doubt that the offense would have been able to convert that? I know the aggressiveness that, like, for me, I think I saw a lot in this game that I don't know. I don't know what it was. I didn't have faith in this offense to convert it. And of course, you would be down by 3, but if they didn't go for it, I'm sorry, you would be up by 3 if they didn't get it. And of course, they get the ball right back. They would be pinned a lot more in. So I guess that is also pretty good as well. But that offense for the Vikings, they were hitting their stride. That they were doing very, very well, especially in that fourth quarter, just kind of rhyming it down. I don't know. How do you feel about this offense? Let's segue into that real quick. How do you feel about this offense right now?
So, I mean, in the first question of whether I thought they would have got, there's a risk there, but at the same time, like they, if you go kind of regressing to the mean, they missed out on so many red zone chances. Maybe they make it this time. They've got the targets there, so I think they had a good chance. In terms of the offense, I think the offensive strategy is intentionally kind of conservative, run the ball a lot, but I think that's also part of trying to help keep the defense off the field. So I get it, right? They're running the ball, and which makes it so Kyler doesn't have to play hero ball as much, and it's worked for them overall. So I think from a process perspective, the way that the offense they're approaching it makes sense. I think we're seeing some inconsistency, where they, we see games where they put up 6 points, right?
Right.
So, and I think part of that is some of the young players, MHJ, I still believe in him. I think he's gonna be a stud, but he's having his ups and downs as a rookie. I think the offensive line has been much better, but they've got room to continue to grow. I think Kyler's overall playing really well. I know he makes his mistakes, but every quarterback does, So yeah, I think this approach and the strategy makes sense. And I just think they're getting hit with some of the inconsistency with, some young players that are going to start making those plays more consistent as they develop.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I look at it more as, I don't know. To me, the offense kind of pisses me off. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat. I think the offense really makes me very, very upset because they were supposed to be the bright spot of this team. And here's the thing, like, this is not to bag on one specific person or a specific coordinator, because that seems to be the big topics, right? Point your finger at Drew, point the finger at Kyler, point the finger at MHJ, Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Everybody seems to want, it's just, I feel like it's just a collective whole in terms of this offense just not being able to get it right. And every time we hear from these coaches, and good for them, right? Like, this is not the BA days where he would call people knee deep and just throw people under the bus, but like they are keeping things tight. They're keeping everything. Hey, we're gonna get better. We're gonna keep things rolling. It was just like, we're already in week 14. Like, I personally have no thoughts that Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr. will get this connection down. Like, they're going to get it somewhere or another. They're going to get it down. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But by week 14, right now, are you concerned that we're still seeing the same things from week 1 to now, or is it just one of those things where it's just like, he's a rookie, new quarterback with him, they're gonna get there at that point?
I'm not concerned. Again, I take a big picture look, like long-term look. And again, in year 2 of this, what they're building, we're seeing kind of what you would expect, except maybe they're ahead of the game because I think they have a really strong chance of making the playoffs. So I don't have any concerns in terms of like, is something, not going to work out.
Right.
I think it's just, they need more time to develop. I think, like McBride is consistent, right? He has been consistent. Michael Wilson, he's kind of, he's plays well at points, but he's your second receiver. So you get what you kind of expect out of that. He makes plays once in a while. And what they need, Marvin Harrison Jr. to develop to the point of being consistent, right? And when he gets consistent closer to what McBride is like, which I think he will get there, right? In his second year. Again, this is the thing. Young players will show flashes of what they can do, which and that's what you want. If you have a young guy who you're hoping to build on, you want to make sure you see flashes of what they can do. The consistency is the thing that comes over time. That's what happens when they become a veteran. So again, long range, I think, okay, next year we're going to see McBride continuing to do what he does consistently. And then we're going to see MHJ more consistent making those plays. And then if he does, and then once in a while Michael Wilson pops, right? And helps carry it. So I think big picture, it's like we're like 80% there, and it's just at 20% of games we kind of aren't there. And I think when Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of develops that consistency, he's going to help fill that gap of that 20% where we're not there.
Right. That's fair. So yeah, you're definitely looking at this long-term style, which I mean, I don't blame you here at the end of the day. Let me ask you this real quick. Being that Kyler Murray is a veteran, do you think he's consistent? Just real quick. You don't have to go too deep into it. Do you think he's consistent, or he's playing consistent?
He has his moments, and this is tough because like people will see him make a mistake and they'll be all, kind of riding him about how terrible that was. But if you watch across the league and look at even the really good quarterbacks, most of them have those mistakes. Like it's not unusual. So I think overall, I think he's playing reasonably consistent football. He has a couple games where he makes, a mistake. You're like, oh my goodness. I don't think he's less consistent than most franchise quarterbacks, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense.
And
okay.
In fact, I actually think he might be a little more consistent than a lot of them. There's a few that are more consistent though than he is, for sure.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, let's move on here real quick to obviously what we think they can accomplish, right? What can the Cardinals accomplish right now? Because 2 weeks ago, we had a completely different mindset. We were all really hoping for the division. Do you still think it's attainable, in your personal opinion, right now? Obviously, you got to take care of Seattle, but what are your thoughts on what this Cardinals team can accomplish, either record-wise or playoffs? Or what are your thoughts, Joe?
This game is pivotal. It's the most important game of the season so far because when you look at the NFC, wild card is not likely in the cards, because it's such a strong NFC. If you look at the NFC, North, that just like that might take all three of those wild card spots. We'll see, right? And you got, in the East, you've got Washington and Philly both playing really good football. So the odds that someone from the NFC West is grabbing a wild card spot are close to nil. So they've got to win the division to make the playoffs. And obviously the Seattle game is a really important division game. Going down 0-2 against Seattle means that we don't win. We don't have a chance in a tiebreaker, right? We have to have one more win than them to make the playoffs. So this game is very important. If the Cardinals win this game, they have a good chance. Then they've split with Seattle. They've got one up on the other two division teams.
Right.
If they can get another division win and then beat the Patriots and the Panthers, which are very winnable games, right? I think have a really good chance of winning the division. If they lose this game, then it would take a miracle. It would take Seattle going on a losing streak, Cardinals going on a winning streak, which is possible, but just not likely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I 100% agree. I think this game is absolutely pivotal here for the Cardinals to even try to think about it, because then you both are at 7-6 at that very moment, and then you got these two games, the Seattle games that are coming up for them. They're not easy. They got the Vikings left, and they got the Green Bay Packers next. I'm not sure if it's in that order, but they got those two next, which is obviously the NFC North right now. You're probably going to see at least three teams in the playoffs. They're just absolutely doing crazy things right now, and Chicago's looking pretty decent right now. They fired Eberflus. Of course, they got their things going on. Hopefully, they can get better and better with what's going on. But Caleb Williams, obviously, with the record they have, a lot of people look at their quarterback. Oh, he's not good, but I think he's actually shown some flashes here and there of pretty good quarterback play, in my opinion. But sticking to the NFC West, let me ask you this real quick. Do you think it's just a two-headed race right now? Do you think it's going to be Cardinals, Seahawks right now? Or do you think we're going to throw in on the Rams? Because I think the 49ers are dead in the water. What are your thoughts?
I mean, going into the season, I thought 49ers were going to be the team to win the division, but injuries and everything, I think they're dead in the water. I do think it's probably Seattle, Arizona, the Rams, Matthew Stafford has a chance, but let's see, what have they, when it comes head to head with Seattle, they did win. So that helps. So I guess because they've already got a win on the Seahawks, you can't, completely so I mean, the only team I think I feel confident is the 49ers are dead in the water.
Yeah.
The other three are probably in it. The other three are in it, and if I'm being completely objective, right, I give probably Seattle the edge because they've got to win, and they've got to win against us, right, in terms of the betting odds, so to speak. And then I would put Arizona and then the Rams kind of in that order of what I think is likelihood of winning the division.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. Let's see what happens in this game, man. It's gonna be very, very crucial. Now it's gonna be home. We don't have to worry about the elements, which is gonna be very, very good. Hopefully, our offense can get going. Let me ask you this real quick. This was something kind of brought to my attention. I did a couple collaborations with my Seattle Seahawk guy, Brandon from the Hawks Nest. Shout out to you, man. Thanks for doing. He actually brought something to light to me. Now, when he asked me, I want to get your take on this. He ended up asking me, do you see you guys going after a young, talented wide receiver in the first or second round next year? And then when I first was asked this, I was like, no, man, we got to go edge. We got to go defensive line. We got to bolster up that line. That's what we got to do. I had a couple of weeks to think about it, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to rule it out. I still am leaning towards defensive line edge in the first round, but the idea of maybe getting somebody, an actual true slot wide receiver, kind of opened my eyes. I'm like, okay, that might be a potential here. What are your thoughts on that, just in general? I know I just kind of sprung it on you. Are you just defensive line? That's all I could think of, or what are your thoughts?
I think it's most likely that first round is defensive front.
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, anything's possible.
Right.
I do. Monty does subscribe to a philosophy that I agree with, which is premium positions in the first 2 days of the draft, and wide receiver is a premium position. But I when I look at the big picture of how they're building this offense, they're building it with offensive line, running game, heavy tight end. And with that kind of game, like if you invest too much money in wide receivers, you're spending a lot of money on players that aren't getting fed. And I often think, even though it's not necessarily the same offensive system exactly, I think about the Baltimore Ravens. They don't invest in lots of high-priced receivers. They get tight ends. They draft tight ends. They keep drafting tight ends.
Yeah.
And they get maybe one good receiver in there, that they might pay some money to. But it's more running and the tight end. And I just think that the way they want to build this offense is Kyler, a solid offensive line, a really good running game, and a couple pass catchers they can depend on. And again, when you think about like roster building, people like to say salary cap isn't real, but it is real. It just has some loopholes. But you have to think about how you're allocating that, and you're going to pay the big picture. You're going to pay Marvin Harrison Jr. a lot of money for his career. You're going to pay Trey McBride a lot of money for his career. With the way they're if you want to build a good defense and a good offensive line, you just can't afford to have 3 premium pass catchers you're paying big money to. You pay 2 of them, then you build the offensive line and the defense, and you draft guys like Michael Wilson, and you kind of keep drafting those guys. So I think it's more likely we see a receiver on day 2, which I could absolutely see that, right? Another guy who you're drafting to develop, so that if Michael Wilson ends up leaving as a free agent, you've got another guy right behind him to take that spot.
Yeah.
But first round, I think, is unlikely.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't know. For some reason, my mind kind of opened up to the idea of Ohio State wide receiver Emeka Egbuka, kind of very similar. Well, I guess not maybe shorter than Marvin, but I feel like maybe if somehow the Cardinals can do something like that, that'd be cool to kind of reunite more of the Ohio State boys together. That'd be pretty cool. But like I said, I don't think we're going to be using a first round. I think right now our main focus should be that defensive line, so these damn quarterbacks aren't building a ham sandwich back there. It's just the way I like to look at it, because too many times have we seen this defense allow just too much time. Now, the crazy thing is that we're getting back there. We're causing pressure, and we're getting like 4 or 5, like 3 to 5 sacks a game, which is actually not bad. It's actually pretty good for who we have on the field. So, all right, I just wanted to kind of take your take on that. I do agree with you as well. Let's talk about the defensive line. What are your thoughts overall on Darius? Made his first appearance last week. What are your thoughts on Darius?
Yeah, I mean, he played a limited number of snaps. Bringing up his grade. He graded reasonably well. He had a 62.2 PFF grade, 69.4 run defense grades, and 60 is like baseline in PFF, right? So slightly above average for his first game, 22 snaps. It was good to see him go out there and not look really bad. Not get abused. So I think I mean, listen, he's a rookie though, right?
Yeah.
Coming off of an injury. So I think it was encouraging to see him play that many snaps. 22 is a decent number for a guy they're kind of easing back in. He graded reasonably well, played good against the run. I think obviously it's a position need. So I think having him could be a really big help on that defensive line. Even if he plays like this every game, that's better than what we've been getting from some of our rotation
That's
players defense.
true.
Uh, so if he gets better, I mean, that could be really big for this defense
Yeah.
down the stretch.
Yeah, no, I agree. I ended up looking at the film, the all 22 film. Couple different things to know. I love that they're using them everywhere, and they said this when they were talking about it, like in the training camp. They're going to use them everywhere in the line except for the nose,
Mhm.
tackle position. But it's really cool to see it, man. Of course, there was a couple moments, and I mean very, very few that he, did very, very. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. It sounds bad when I said that like that. There was a few moments that he actually got back there in penetration, but the ball went the other way, either a run. But like you could see really good intangibles from him, and this is his very first game. Hasn't played football in a very long time. Obviously, the calf, his mother passing away, a lot of things kind of delayed the debut. But overall, I think he did pretty good. I think he did pretty good. I'm excited to see what he's going to do with the remaining of the weeks here with the Arizona Cardinals defense. And I think you're 100% correct. Regardless, he is looking better than who we got on right now in terms of just consistency. And I'm excited to see what he's going to blossom into. Hopefully, he's going to be that guy that we all need him to be. Let me ask you this real quick. Michael Wilson. We're kind of going
Yeah.
back and forth, but Michael Wilson right now, number 2 wide receiver. How do you feel about him right now in terms of just like our wide receiving core? How do you feel about Michael Wilson being number 2?
I think I definitely think he's not a number one, at least not at this point. And I think so that's the high end right now for him is you want him as your number 2. I think as he makes some nice plays, he's smart. He's a really good kind of guy to have in that role. He's big. He has good body control, can get good separation. He's a kind of guy who can make a play kind of when you need it. He's not a guy who's a volume guy like McBride has become, but he has the kind of skill set that when you need him to kind of make that play, once a quarter, he can do it for you. It'd be nice to see more consistent targets for him. I just don't know if that's in the plan for the type of offense they're running, like we talked about, so run heavy and with so many targets going to McBride. I don't know that we're going to see more targets to him. So it's one of those things where when he does get targets, then hopefully he does something good with them, and it seems like he does.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think when it comes down to Michael Wilson, he's had some pretty crazy catches, like the one that was kind of like that breadbasket one, and then there was a couple that seemed a little lucky in the Vikings game. But overall, I feel like he shows up, he steps up. I think overall, I think we got some pretty good weapons for Kyler Murray for this offense to run. Not elite, right? I'm not saying we're going to be the best offense in the world, but it seems to be working. Now, of course, there's some concerns when James Conner only gets, eight yards with 9 rushes or whatever the stat was with the Seattle Seahawks game. But it's true that we are such a run-heavy team that very minimal targets go to, Greg Dortch, Marvin Harrison Jr., or even Michael Wilson. There has been said to be a lot, and I'm not sure if you heard this whole narrative, but Marvin Harrison Jr. was targeted 12 times, got 5 receptions. This has been a big thing that I've been trying to blow the fire out and try to protect my guy Marvin Harrison Jr. What are your thoughts on that? Because people made it a big point as to, oh, he's not the guy that we all thought he was going to be. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, objectively speaking, I think he hasn't played as well his rookie season as I think we all thought he would, because he came in touted as this, the best receiver prospect since Jamar Chase. And those receiver prospects, some of those elite ones have come out and had really good rookie years.
Sure.
And with him, it's been a little up and down. He's got a lot of touchdowns, but he's also, there's been a lot of 50-50 balls that he didn't get, but there've been some amazing plays he's made. So it's been a little inconsistent, but you've seen those flashes. So again, I keep coming back to this. Part of it is the offense, right? It's not as much of a high volume passing offense. He's getting targets though. So, you want to see that consistency improve. So he's making those plays sometimes, but sometimes he isn't. So, I think Cardinals fans are a little disappointed. They wanted to see more, and I get that. And I probably would have liked to have seen more in terms of the consistency. Big picture, I mean, I'm not panicking. I think just the skill set's there, the flashes are there. It's just as the consistency increases, which happens over time, he's going to become, I think, the guy we thought he would be. But yeah, it's been a little up and down his rookie year.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, I agree. I think all the narratives, or I guess the things that have been labeled with Marvin Harrison Jr., like not fasting or not like coming out of his breaks, not getting the 50-50 balls. To me, like I understand where they're coming from. I don't think there's any like I don't think they're lies. I think they're true. But like to me, I don't know. Like Marvin Harrison Jr., and it might have been because the big hype with obviously Marvin Harrison, his dad, and he was sold to be the best wide receiver we've seen come out of college in a very, very long time. But I think he's on pace to be, very, very good. Not Anquan Bolden numbers, but he might be beating Larry Fitzgerald numbers. And I think that's actually something to be said because Marvin Harrison Jr., although yes, looks a little timid, looks a little not that fast when you're looking at the tape.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of blame this offense a little bit, to be honest with you. Now I know 12 targets, 5 catches. When I look back on those specific plays, I don't think like I don't think they're his fault. Like I really don't think they're his fault. Now maybe a couple of them are maybe, but like to say 7 of them were on Marvin Harrison Jr.'s fault, like we're talking about a rookie here, a rookie wide receiver that's going to get it. I have all the full faith and the confidence in the world, and it might be because like I wanted him as well, so I'm trying to defend him. You know what I mean? That might be what it is, but like I don't know. I don't think they're his fault. Most of them, some of them, yeah, it could be, but I don't think most of them. Like, because that means 7 of them he didn't get. But like, I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of balls sailing. I'm seeing a lot of balls like that interception. The last one. I know Kyler said that when he looked, he beat him. Like Marvin beat the guy, and that's why he threw it to him. But I don't know. Just the way that played out definitely seemed like Shaq Griffin was in a better position to get that ball. But I don't know. I feel like he's on pace. I think he's really good. I'm excited to see what he's going to do for the Arizona Cardinals for years to come. We're talking about wide receiver 1. I'm really excited to see what he's going to do. What will make you happy? I guess because I know you said up and down. In terms of numbers, do you want to see more production, like more attributes that would make you happier, or are you okay with some sort of stat line? Like if let's say, for example, he cracks 1K, 10 touchdowns. Is that good for you in your mind in terms of success? Or are you still kind of on the up and down? Like, what is your happy part?
I don't like to anchor it to a statistical number because those things can be anomalous. Sometimes you can get there, like you have one game where you just have some crazy blowout win, and then it pads those stats.
True.
I'm more of a process kind of a person. So what I want to see, you want to see growth and development, right? So we look at Marvin Harrison Jr. It's like, okay, where is the growth and development potential? Like, well, he's making big plays and he's getting touchdowns, lots of touchdowns.
Yeah.
So being that red zone target and being on those big plays, that's not where the growth is as necessary. The growth is the consistency, right? So seeing him more consistently, get open early and throughout the game and just get a little bit more and make some of those 50-50 ball catches. So I want to see more receptions kind of on regularly, right? I want to see him disappear less. That to me is the growth area.
Gotcha. That's fair. So more action on the field, right? You want to see a little bit more of the redefining the tools, getting the 50-50. I got my guy Ian in the chat, says Marv year 2 is going to be unguardable. Love it. I mean, I hope so. I hope so. I have all the faith in the world that I think he's going to get there. Let's continue to talk about what this team can accomplish real quick. 6-6. I know Seattle, that pesky Seattle, man. They're riding our way right now. Let's talk about overall, right? Let's talk about the season in a nutshell. We got 2 division games at the end. We got winnable games. Quotation, winnable games after this one, and then we got the Seattle Seahawks. What do you think this Cardinals team can accomplish? Because I've said this on my podcast, I think on Monday or Tuesday, if the Cardinals win 8 games, I feel like that's a big success. Now, looking at it, you got 5 games left. That's only 2 games. I guess that doesn't look to be like I have a high standard for this team, but 8 wins to me is actually pretty impressive from year 1 to year 2. How do you look at this season potentially as a success? Are you going for the division? Do you want playoffs? Do you want 8 wins? What do you see is a success for you leaving this the season?
Yeah, so I'm going back to the big picture of year 2 of a rebuild and and again, this model, if you look at what the Lions did, this is the model they did, right? And so year 2, you want a team to be more wins and you want them to be pushing for a playoff spot, which is exactly what we're seeing with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So if they come out of this with 8 wins, big picture, like that's, coming into the season, if you said, hey, this team's going to have 8 wins and you're going to see the defense develop and the offense, have its moments, I would have said, yes, that is a successful year 2 under Monty Austinford.
Yeah.
So to me, if you look at it, Patriots and Panthers, those are very winnable games. So, if they lose those games, if they don't win 8 games, then that means they've lost both of those games and they haven't found a way to win another game against the Rams or the 49ers or the Seahawks. So to me, that if they don't, I think 8 wins probably is the baseline. I know I just said I don't like finding anchoring the numbers, but from a process perspective, if they don't get 8 wins, that means they lost 2 games to bad teams, Patriots and the Panthers, and they didn't find a way to make up for it by beating the Rams, 49ers, or Seahawks. So if they don't win 8 games, they faltered down the stretch for what I would have hoped. If they win at least 8 games, that means they beat both of those teams, sure, and lost the other 3. I think what they can do, I think winning the division is absolutely realistic. I know our Seattle trolls are going to go off in the chat, but I'm kind of ignoring them. But if they win I think they can win the division, and I think they have the potential to win a playoff game. I don't see a deep playoff run because of the inconsistencies.
Yep.
Right. But I think their ceiling this year is win the division and 1 playoff win. Obviously anything can happen, but realistically, I think that's a ceiling. The most likely outcome, I think, and again, objectively speaking, not what I want, but I think the most likely outcome is 9 wins and miss the playoffs.
9 wins and miss the play.
Beating the Patriots, beating the Panthers, and winning 1 more of those 3 games in the division. That's to me, if you had to say, Joe, not as a fan, but as just an objective person, bet money on the outcome. That's the outcome I'd bet as the most probable. But I think they can do better than that.
So out of these 5 games, 3 wins, right?
Yeah, that's what I think is the most likely outcome.
That's fair. No, that's fair. We got my guy here, Techno Bear, I believe. Techno Bear says 8 wins after a 6-4 start is a failure. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think, that's an opinion, so everyone can have their opinion. It's disappointing that they didn't, kind of continue on that. But, again, I look at big picture, year 2 of a rebuild, 8 wins with a tough opening schedule. I don't think that's a failure. No. Is it disappointing? Yeah. But I don't think it's a failure. Again, I look big picture, year 1, year 2, and then year 3 and beyond is where you're a contender. So they're building you're seeing the defense showing that it can get there, that it's developing, all the signs towards next year, them having a really solid team. There's a lot of things pointing towards that. So, respectfully, I don't agree with that. But again, everyone has a right to their opinion, right? And it's subjective. There's not a clear right and wrong answer. So we can all make arguments, right?
Yeah, and the defense has been, man, we mentioned this earlier when we opened up the stream. The defense has been absolutely outshining, man. Like, they have been doing so much better than I thought that they were going to do. I thought we were going to see a lot more of those Commander games and Green Bay Packer games where we were just getting obliterated, Swiss cheese. And then, kudos to Nick Rallis and kudos to Jonathan Gannon and the defensive players that they got and believing and, shutting people down in the second half or not allowing touchdowns. Like, we've seen games like that, and that's really, really good for the defense. And I just don't understand for the people out there that are blaming the defense for like any losses, with the exception of probably those 2 Commanders and the Green Bay Packers games. But for the most part, they're in, man. They're in here. They're sticking the nose in the games, and then they're trying to win. They're fighting hard. Do they break sometimes? Yeah, but it's one of those things. Let me ask you let's continue with the defense here real quick. The cornerbacks. How are you feeling about the cornerbacks? They're actually pretty darn good, right? Decent. Maybe not Sean Murphy Bunting, but what do you feel about the cornerbacks?
Yeah, I think we're seeing the cornerbacks, they've got a young room, right? I think when you look at Garrett Williams is, the 9th highest graded cornerback per PFF. So he has been just a great pick. We have a slot corner who is solid. The outside cornerbacks have, they grade out right around average, like just under 60. They're hot and cold. The overall production, the defense lately, we've seen overall not giving up a ton of points. So they're getting the job done. Maybe we're just not seeing as many big plays outside of Garrett Williams. Right. From a roster building process perspective, I like what they're doing. They've drafted guys on day 2, multiple guys, Max Melton, Elijah Jones, who we haven't seen yet. Right. So I think those guys, obviously Garrett Williams, I think of all those young guys, right, someone's kind of going to develop to become that number one, I think. Max Melton's the guy you'd bet on it because of the tools. But between him, Keitrell Clark, Starling Thomas, Elijah Jones, like I think someone's going to develop into being a solid guy. And then whoever, then someone else is going to be a serviceable number two. Maybe they draft another guy at some point, to kind of continue to build that room. And I think their overall approach is, kind of put talented guys from the middle draft rounds in there and see who develops. But overall, I mean, I like what we're seeing, but I do want to see one of those guys emerge.
Yeah. I agree. Okay. We got a lot of Seahawks fans in the chat. I didn't expect how much Seahawks are going to be on the chat. Cardinals fans, where are you? Go and stand up. But let me ask you this. Let's talk about Cardinals and Seahawks, right? We got about 15 more minutes here or 13 more minutes. Let's talk about how you think this game is going to go down. Obviously, the first time we met, not ideal, but a very, very defensive, gritty type of game, a typical Cardinals versus Seahawks game. Last time we had a game that was only field goal on both sides, and it was just a weird freaking game. So anytime we suit up versus the Seahawks, it's a tough, gritty matchup, usually, for the most part. They've had our number for the past few years. How do you think this game's going to shake out for the Cardinals?
I think they're going to, obviously they look at the film from last game, and I think they're going to see what the Seattle defensive front was doing. And I think Petzing and crew are going to come out, and I think they're going to really try to have some things up their sleeve in terms of the running game. I think they're really going to try to get and some misdirection stuff, which they've done all year. But I think they're really going to have a game plan that's going to try to get that Seattle defensive front kind of on their heels a little bit in the run game, and then do some, and then really kind of do some things in terms of some screen games which is how you kind of deal with pass rush. So I do think the offense is going to really focus on neutralizing, what Seattle did last game. So I think we're going to see a lot of counters and misdirections and some screen and a lot of stuff with extra tight ends to kind of create some running lanes. And I think they're going to try to start by establishing that run. And if they can do that, then they're going to start doing some play action and things like that, obviously. But I do think we're going to see some wrinkles. And even I think Gannon, in one of the interviews, said that they kind of didn't show everything because they were looking at that second game against Seattle. So maybe they might have some things up their sleeve and maybe that's, kind of been something that's been in the works for a few weeks.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope this offense can get going now. Versus the Vikings, we've seen some flashes of some good things, but obviously down the stretch, it didn't really look too good for the offense. But I hope that this is the game that we can get a get right game for this offense in general, and I mean everybody, because I think the last time we played the Seattle Seahawks, they were probably one of the most dominant defensive lines that we played. Kyler was under duress every second he blinked. There was someone there, especially Leonard Williams, just an absolute freak of nature. He was just killing us, eating our interior offensive line. They're gonna get another pass rusher back, and I always mess up his name, Nawasu, and I'm but whatever his name is. But they're going to get him back as well. So I hope that is going to be the approach where screenplays, right, misdirections, but most important things, you got to run the ball, man. You cannot have another performance from James Conner with 8 yards, 9 carries, or 9 yards, 8 carries, whatever that stat was. It's not good. That's not a good recipe for success for the Cardinals.
Right.
So Geno Smith, in that last game, I feel like for the most part, we actually did very well against Geno. But there was a couple plays here and there that he made, either extending it with his legs or just extending it by moving out of the pocket or rolling out. Geno Smith played pretty darn well. It's with this defense, that Seattle Seahawks defense, is what I'm really worried about more than anything, because offensively, I mean, they got some pieces. Obviously, we always think DK, Kenneth Walker, and then the emergence of JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba is looking pretty darn good, but I really fear their defense is what really, really kind of keeps me up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and listen, Geno is very, very risk reward, deep pass, takes deep shots and throws a lot of interceptions. He's successful in deep throws, but he also throws a lot of picks. And shout out to, I think it was Mina Kimes who talked about this on one of her podcasts, that's like, what the Cardinals defense is really good against is the deep pass. And so so it's strength against strength in that regard. But I'm with you. It really comes down to the defensive front. If whoever wins the trenches, I think wins this game. Yes, Geno's going to take his shots. I think the Cardinals defense is are in terms of how they play defense is pretty well equipped to, play against that style. But it is, if Seattle can shut down our run game, Seattle's going to win again. If the Cardinals can establish a run game, they're gonna matriculate the ball down the field, and then Kyler's not going to have to play as many long downs, and he's going to be able to make some easier throws and not have to take as many risks. So to me, everything is about that, the trenches, the defensive front versus the offensive line.
100%. I got my guy Cards fan in the chat here, says, I think Benson should take over as running back one. Now, I'm going to disagree real quick, but I do want to get your take on maybe potentially seeing more of a dosage of Trey Benson, maybe disguising it to where, I don't know, it almost does kind of seem a little obvious because, like I said, I do these play-by-plays, and I've been doing it for the past, 5 or 6 weeks straight, and I'm not lying to you. I could even tell when it's going to be a run because it just seems a little obvious. Now, when Trey Benson's back there, it almost kind of seems a little less, hey, maybe they might do something else, maybe there's play action, whatever it might be, but to maybe add him a little bit more into, getting more snaps, I feel like could be beneficial for the Arizona Cardinals offense. Now, obviously, if we keep scoring off or converting third downs, it's room for everybody to eat, right? But the problem is that third down efficiency has been a big, big problem for the Cardinals. And of course, you got your number one guy back there in James Conner. If we're not converting these first downs, you get so much more snaps or less snaps for everybody else to eat. What are your thoughts on potentially seeing Trey Benson, or what have you seen from Trey Benson that you liked or don't like? Do you think he's ready for maybe a bigger role, or do you think that's next year's problem?
Yeah, and I'm definitely with you. I think there's no way you make Trey Benson the start of this year. Right. The PFF grade, James Conner's running grade is 88.2. Trey Benson's is 58.3. Right. So here's the deal with Benson. He's got more speed. Right.
Yeah.
And that's great. Right. Than Conner. But where he's limited is his vision. Right. Following the holes and ball carrier vision. Coming out of college, that was kind of the critique of him, right? He has all the tools, but doesn't always follow the blocks as well. And James Conner, just the only thing he lacks is elite speed. I mean, he's got good vision, good power. He leads the league in broken tackles. He's smart. If he has a bad game once in a while, that'll happen, but that's not on him. I think that's a bigger system failure, the offensive line game plan, or Seattle, just like they did a couple weeks back, just really having a good performance. Getting Benson in there a little more, I don't have a problem with that. Find some ways to take advantage of his speed, keep James Conner fresh, keep him healthy, right? So I think, you getting Benson in there to kind of have a change of pace a little bit with that extra speed to help him develop his own game, because you want him, when James Conner a couple years from now or however long is retiring or what have you, or if he gets injured and misses time, you want Benson to be ready. So you want him to get some play and to continue to develop. But you don't, from a performance perspective, I don't think there's a reasonable argument for replacing Conner with Benson.
Right. Especially after the extension. I think we're going to be seeing more James Conner, especially if he stays healthy. Definitely going to be the workhorse for the Cardinals for sure. But I don't know. I feel like throwing a couple, I don't know, mixing it up won't hurt. I feel like for the Cardinals, because like I said, sometimes when I'm watching these play-by-plays, I'm like, this is going to be a freaking run. I can feel it. Load the box and just take them down. But yeah, I mean, there's flashes, right? There's definitely some flashes, and I know I still have to see people here in the chat talking about the failure if we start 6-4 and then only win 8 games. But I think in the end of the day, if you're looking at the hindsight, the Cardinals aren't getting blown out in every single game. They're not. They only got blown out in 2 games. So if we saw more blowouts, then I would be a little bit more concerned if it's an 8-win season, but there's just blowout. But I don't know. You got to kind of take some sort of positivity into 2025, and I think that. Another big talking point out there, or another big thing to talk about, is obviously people are getting on Petsing about potentially getting fired. But if we're 8 wins, I don't think anybody's getting fired. I really don't. I think that's a great progress. Do you agree with that take? Now, obviously, it depends if you get blow it out. But for the most part, if we're in these games and we win 8 games, I think everybody's safe, right? I mean, everybody.
Yeah, I think so. And listen, Petsing's passing stuff has been a little disappointing. But I think the fans are a lot more down on him than they are in the building, because what fans I think don't see, and what people some of the folks who really do this stuff for a living in the analysis and look at the film, they see what Petsing is doing, especially in the run blocking.
Yeah.
And like it's really good. Like some
Yeah.
of the stuff he's doing, very creative. And coaches are like players; they need to develop too. And he's young, right? Yes, he's in his second year as offensive coordinator. You'd like to see some more development on the passing side, but he's doing some really great things. And last year, really, with limited personnel, did some nice things down the stretch. So I'm not saying he hasn't had it, some things that are worth critiquing, but the idea that he's on the hot seat, I have a hard time with. And I think everyone's coming back. I think they like what they're building. I don't think anyone's getting fired that is from anything I could see.
I 100% agree. I'm probably one of the minority when it comes down to the fans when talking about, like, I don't think he's in the hot seat. I really don't. I don't think he should be. I think when you're looking at the film, there's plays to be made. And you heard Jonathan Gannon say that, and even that breakdown with Kurt Warner. And I'm not sure if you saw that. There's plays to be made out there. Now, obviously, well, once we get a little bit familiar and a little bit better and more, hopefully we'll be able to make those plays. But like, there's plays to be made. They're out there. So, and yeah, this run game, I mean, for the most part, is pretty freaking dynamic. I mean, Tip Ryman coming in here. Yes, he had a couple mistakes here and there, but like this rookie class that we're seeing from 2024, a lot of everybody's like helping. Like maybe not the best help, but like everybody's giving their own 2 cents and sharing out and helping out this team. It's great.
Yeah, for sure. And with the run game, it's not just that the stats are good. Like, again, and you talk about like Kurt Warner to break down, like you just see it time after time, people who look at the film and analyze it talk about the kinds of things they're doing in the blocking, the run game to really throw off defenses. It's not just they're going out there and putting up numbers. It's that the process and what they're doing along the way is really innovative and really, really smart on the running side. He's just got to get, find a way to kind of get the passing game going with it a little bit more.
Yeah. The execution part, I feel like needs to be fine-tuned and consistent in my personal opinion, but that's
the young player thing we're talking about too, right? That's part of it. So
yeah, no, absolutely. It's definitely for sure a part of it. All right, let's end off with this. Predictions. What do you think? What do you think? Right now we're sitting on, what is this today? What day is this? Is it Friday or Thursday? Oh my God, it's Friday. My goodness.
Right?
Okay, what is your prediction? We got 2 days away from Cardinals for Seahawks, arguably one of the most important games here of the season, especially for the division or potentially to win the division. But what are your thoughts and how you think this game is going to shake out?
I know I said earlier the most likely outcome for the season was, them not winning this game and them winning, 3 games, but not making the playoffs. But in the short run, I'm going to say it's at home. They played Seattle close in Seattle. And I think their run game is not, I don't think it's going to get shut down twice. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a win in a close game with a lot of running.
A lot of running.
Yeah.
You need it. Kyler too, I'm assuming. Get Kyler involved with his legs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I agree. I think if Kyler Murray can have a very, very good game using his legs and we're not shut down with James Conner being limited to like 8 to 9 yards, I think we can have very much success. And for the people out there, in the chat that are Seahawks fans, we did play pretty tough. I mean, we were pick 6 away, unfortunately, that Kyler ended up throwing. But at the end of the day, I think this offense is going to be able to get it right. Now, if we don't, then of course we'll deal with that at that very moment. So I have this game in the 20s too. I could say like 27-20. I think 27-20 is comfortable for me to say, because Gino's going to get his points. Like they're going to get their points either with Kenneth Walker or JSN. They're going to get their points. But I do feel like we hopefully can continue the trend of having 3 to 4 sacks at least a game and maybe a turnover or 2. But we got to be able to capitalize. Touchdowns, no field goals. Touchdowns, no field goals. So
yeah.
All right,
I think the score will be a little lower than that. I think I'd go more like 21-17. 21-17, something like that. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's close up shop here. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Do me a huge favor, ladies and gentlemen. Smack up the like button. And if you guys haven't already checked out the Cardinal Rule, a.k.a. Joe is what I know him by. Is it every Tuesday that you go live on your channel?
Most Tuesdays. I've missed a few with the busy schedule, but I go live Tuesdays, talk about like the PFF grades for the most recent game. Yeah.
Perfect. It will be tagged in the title of this video. So go ahead and show him some love here if you want to go ahead and check out his content. Appreciate everybody for tuning in as always. It's been an absolute pleasure. Another shout out here to BetUS, sponsoring the AZ Sports Fan here on YouTube. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. And as always, go Cardinals.